If you have been married a long time, you already know the fight. It starts over a receipt or a number on a statement or something one of you bought without saying. And within about 90 seconds, it is not about the receipt at all anymore. Here is something researchers found that I wish every couple knew. Of all the ordinary things couples argue about, money is the one that most predicts whether they will make it. And the reason is almost never the money itself. So let me give you the useful part first, because it can change the very next one of these you have. The next time a money fight starts, I want you to notice the moment it stops being about the number. It is usually fast. One of you says something about the amount, and the other one hears something about themselves. About being controlled, or being blamed, or not being trusted, or not being enough. The number was just the doorway. What walked through it was everything else. And once you can see that doorway while you are standing in it, the whole fight changes, because you can finally answer the real thing instead of the receipt. Now let me show you this is not just a nice idea. It holds up when people actually study it. There was a well-known piece of research drawn from a large national survey that followed thousands of couples over several years. The researchers looked at all the everyday things couples disagree about: chores, in-laws, how to spend time together, sex, and money. And when they checked back years later to see who was still married, one kind of disagreement stood out above all the others as a warning sign. It was money. For husbands in that study, it was the only common disagreement that predicted divorce at all. Now sit with how strange that is. Money is not more important than love, or trust, or how you treat each other, so why would arguing about it be the loudest alarm bell of them all? And the answer is the whole point of tonight. It is the loudest alarm precisely because it is never really about the money. And if you take nothing else from this, take the part that should bring you some relief. Arguing about money does not mean your marriage is failing. In one large survey, roughly 4 in 10 couples said they argue about it. You are not the exception, you are the rule. The question is never whether you fight about money. It is what the fight is actually made of. So what is it actually made of? Because if we can name that, everything gets easier. Money is not really a number in a marriage, it is a container. Into that small word, dollars, we quietly pour some of the biggest things we carry. Our sense of safety, of whether the ground under us is solid. Our sense of fairness, of whether we are being treated as an equal. Our sense of control, of whether we get a say in our own life. And our sense of worth, of whether we are doing enough, being enough, providing enough. None of those things fit on a receipt, but all of them ride in on one. The people who study marriage for a living say the same thing in plainer words. Arguments about money are almost never about money. They are about dreams and fears, and the parts of ourselves we are most afraid are not safe. When your husband snaps about the grocery bill, he may not be talking about groceries at all. He may be talking about a fear he has never once said out loud. When your wife goes quiet about a purchase, the silence may not be about the purchase. It may be about not feeling asked. And here is where it gets deep, and also where it gets forgivable. The two of you did not arrive with the same idea of what money means. You each learned it somewhere, long before you met. Think about the house you grew up in. One of you may have grown up where money was tight and frightening, where a raised voice about a bill meant the whole family held its breath. So for you, saving is not being careful, it is being safe. It is making sure that fear never comes back. And you married someone who grew up where money was easier, or where spending was how love got shown, where a gift meant you mattered. So for them, spending is not being reckless, it is being generous, it is love made visible. Now put those two people in one kitchen, 30 years later, arguing about a sofa. One of them is not really arguing about a sofa. They are arguing for the frightened child who watched their parents fight about money. The other is not arguing about a sofa either. They are arguing for the child who learned that holding back was the opposite of love. Two children in two grown bodies having a fight that started decades before either of them was in the room. No wonder it never quite resolves. You have been trying to settle it with numbers, and it was never a numbers problem. Let me tell you about a couple I knew, married almost 40 years, who fought about the thermostat and the grocery bill and the cost of a new roof. The same three fights on a loop for decades. He counted every dollar and she found it suffocating, and she spent freely and he found it terrifying, and each of them was completely certain the other one was the problem. Then one ordinary evening, worn out, he said the thing he had never said. He told her that when he was 9, his father lost the family business, and he remembered the week they turned the heat off, and he had promised himself that his own family would never, ever be cold like that again. He was not being cheap. He was keeping a promise to a frightened 9-year-old. And she sat there and cried, because in 40 years she had thought he just did not trust her. It was never about the thermostat. It was about a cold house in 1961. They did not fix their finances that night. They fixed something much older, and the money fights got quiet almost on their own. I want to add one more layer, gently, because it is a pattern people notice, and I want to be careful with it, because it is only a pattern and it varies enormously from couple to couple. Very often, though not always, the two people feel a money threat differently. For one partner, money trouble can feel like danger, like safety itself is slipping. For the other, it can feel like shame, like failing at a job they were supposed to be good at. Same bank account, two completely different alarms going off. And because the alarms are different, each one thinks the other is overreacting, when really they are just reacting to a different fear entirely. So what do you actually do with all this? And notice I am not going to hand you a technique, because this was never a technique problem. The move, the only real move, is smaller and harder than any budget. It is to let the fear underneath the fight be said out loud, once, without either of you rushing to defend. Not to fix it, not to solve the number, just to say the true thing under the number and to have it heard. Something like, when we spend past a certain point, I stop feeling safe, and I do not know how to make that feeling go away. Or, when you question what I bought, I feel like you think I am failing, and that is the thing I am most afraid of. Those sentences have almost no numbers in them, and they are the entire fight, finally spoken in its own language instead of in dollars. Most couples never say those sentences. They say the dollar version instead for 40 years and wonder why the same fight keeps coming back with a different price tag on it. It keeps coming back because the real thing never got heard. The receipt changes. The fear underneath stays exactly the same, waiting to be recognized. And here is the part I most want you to take to bed tonight. The goal was never to win the money fight. There is no winning it, because the person across the table is not your opponent. They are the one other person on earth in this particular marriage with you, carrying their own old fear into the same kitchen. You are not on opposite sides of the money. You are on the same side, facing two frightened children who happen to be the two of you and who have been arguing through you for a very long time. The couples who find peace with money are almost never the ones who agree about it. They are the ones who finally understood that they were never really fighting about it. They learned to hear the fear instead of the figure. And once you can do that, even a little, even imperfectly, the receipts lose their power to end the evening. So here is what I would like from you tonight. Tell me in the comments about a money fight in your marriage that turned out not to be about money at all. What was it really about underneath? You do not have to have solved it. Just naming it out loud, where someone else can see it, is more than most people ever do, and it will help the couple reading it who thought they were the only ones. Take care of the quiet things, and the quiet things will take care of you.